We could share this. We could share this with the person who owns the initiative, right? Right. Okay, so we've looked at Git. I'm sure quite a number of us here have completed it, right? So is there anybody that wants to walk us through, what have you learned about it? Because, I have a few things that I'd like to share, all right, as we go on in the course of this Q&A, okay? So what have we learned about Git? Can anybody just share with us, when you were doing, as it's about 10 hours course, and I'm sure if you really have gone through the whole 10 hours, right, you should have something to talk about. Okay, so anybody that wants to share with us, what you learned, all right, in the course of the 10 hours? Anybody?
Yeah, good evening. Good evening.
Yeah, you can unmute yourself. I think I'm not sure. Yeah, so you can unmute yourself if you have anything to say. All right, please go ahead, Mr. Aderiti. Please go ahead.
Okay, good evening, Oluwaseun. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for the contribution, the impact. Let me just put it that way. We are grateful, we appreciate. However, along the course of the training, I've been able to learn the JIT and GitHub, the version control system and co.
Okay.
But there are some parts within that version control system, I didn't get them very well, accurately well. But I know I need to finish up with the program in time and ahead of the schedule of the submission. But I will appreciate if you break it down or probably run us through one or two things in the system. You understand. So that's what I'm saying. And secondly, the Python class I've commenced, but I've not completed it. So I want to know when is the last time for the completion of this course.
I don't know if it's on my own end or I can hear you again, if you can hear me.
Hello.
Mr. Adesonyuki, I think we lost him there, but of course, I think I got what he said, so I've noted it down. All right, Mr. Akonde, please, you can go ahead with your question, with your contribution, what you have learned so far, and whatever challenge that you also have. You can go ahead, please.
Yeah, it's been good so far. Are you hearing me?
I can hear you clearly. Please go ahead.
Okay. So it's been good so far. And when I started the course on the Git and GitHub, although initially when I opened the site, I think there are sometimes there are disconnections between the site and the YouTube. So I wasn't able to watch the videos, but later on I was able to watch it and I got along with it. And I finished the course and I even went over it through it again when I was still less busy yesterday and while still doing the Python programming as well.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. Okay, all right. All right, and okay, Mr. Aderiti, you weren't able to conclude what you were saying. So if you are here and you can hear us, perhaps you could just conclude, what you were trying to share with us.
Oh, okay. I said on the Python, I've started the training for the Python,
Okay.
but I have not completed it. So I want to know when is the exact timeline for the completion of it, so I can know how I can speed up on the class. That's on the Python. But as for the GitHub, I don't really have so much issue, except if you want to run us through some of other things that you feel we should know about it as well, as it was not properly documented for us. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So do we have anybody that wants to share with us, your experience, all right, going through the Git program? Anybody? I think two people have, mentioned something, they've spoken to us. So I don't know if we have anybody that wants to share anything with us again. We have AGK, we have Inek. Okay, Inek?
Yes, can I? Good evening, everyone. Please, can I say something?
Please go ahead. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Good evening. So sorry for joining some minutes past.
No, it's okay. It's fine. It's fine. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I just want to share my experience with the first module we submitted, the Git.
Okay.
Before now, I had a little knowledge on Git and all of that, but this Udacity course really gave me that ability to really go into doing running all the codes, and because I decided to take it my own pace now, I told myself I'm going to take out time. So I started on time, so I wasn't in a hurry to. I took it like 4 hours. A module that will be for 1 hour, I'll take it for like 3 hours so that I can practice and run all the codes and all
Yeah.
the tricks kind of that. So it was really, really a fun time, and I really appreciate. I just hope that going forward is also going to continue like that until we finish the program. It's really been an interesting time. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Good to know. Do we have anybody else that wants to share? Maybe you have some issues, or you just want to talk to us about your experience, or learning this version control system, all right? SCM, source control management. All right. So, any other person? Mr. Godwin, is there anything you'd like to share with us? I think you were the first person that came in, if I remember correctly.
Okay, well, it has been good. I would say, like, for me, I've actually, before now, I've taken the course on Git and GitHub, and I've, done quite some work, using Git. So, it wasn't, quite new to me, but I really appreciate that the program gave us the opportunity to, start from the scratch, same thing also with Python. I've, learned, something on Python, but I still find the Python course very interesting. Just like somebody mentioned, taking time to, really go through the lessons and not really rushing through it. Most of the times it goes, a long way to make the model sink in. But, sometimes there is sometimes a trade-off between trying to, learn the models, take our time to learn, and also trying to meet up, with deadlines. So I also understand that the the people behind setting up the training and all that are also getting feedbacks from us, and also trying to modify the program to suit the objective and all that. So I really appreciate the way everything has been going, and the way the organizers are also taking the feedback, very serious. So I hope that with time, we'll get to, fine-tune the process and the learning and the timing, which is also a challenge for most, people, even including myself. I'm not done with the Python course as well, because I don't just want to rush through it, taking my time to, let it sink in. So I believe, within this shortest possible time, everybody would get all the expectations, so that we can kick off smoothly. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much. I don't know if you have a lady on the call. If you could hear from a lady, all the guys, at least we have about 3 guys who have spoken. Do we have a lady on the call?
Yes, you do.
All right. So please, let's hear from you. Thank you.
Okay, so my experience with the course was actually nice. Prior to this, I actually had a little experience on Git, and the course is actually very good for grabbing the major fundamentals that can help you with your day-to-day activities on Git. So overall, my experience was pretty good.
Right. That's okay. All right. Now, okay. Because of time. Okay, Mr. Elechukwu, I think I got that correctly. Do you want to say something? Oh, okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much for all that you've said. Now, what we are considering, or let me say, the training is actually, tending towards us becoming a DevOps engineer, right? So, oops, sorry, just a minute. So the course is, something that is prepping us to become, right, DevOps engineer, right? So, but I want to ask us before we go ahead, before I share a few things with us, because I also have a few things that I'd like to share with us here. I want to ask, and I need responses from people. When you're doing anything, there has to be an objective, right? Why are you doing what you do? Okay. Because I think, quite a number of people sometimes when things like this are free, well, there tend to be some kind of abuses. People tend to abuse and say, oh, well, we'll learn it later on. And all right. And some people also, the idea is, okay, let me just learn and then I'm looking for a job in the job market and all of that, which is a good one also. But I just want to ask us, right, why are you really here? Okay. Okay, why are you really here? What's the end result? What's the end goal? Right? What is it that you have in mind? That, okay, at the end of this training, if I'm able to scale through, do the Git, do the Python, and then I have access to the code cloud resources where you now start talking about things like AWS, Ansible, Terraform, and all of this, good stuff, Kubernetes, Docker, and the rest of them. All right, what is it? What's the end result? I don't know if you can have like 2-3 people tell us, right, what you really have in mind, why you have decided to take this course. Because, and the reason I'm asking is, I like what somebody said that, something that should take an hour, you will spend 3 hours on, on the subject, just because, he wanted to get a good understanding of, what the thing is really about, which I think is a good one. It's always good to take things slowly and learn it and then understand what you're learning, right? It's not just about typing in the code and all of that. Is about, understanding what does this thing really do? How does it work? Okay, because if you go for an interview, yes, you can be good. Your CV might be impressive, but at the end of the day, they want to listen to you speak, right? They want you to speak to your experience. They want you to speak to your CV. They want you to speak to all the things that you've written down on your CV that you said okay? And so the way you flow in an interview actually says a lot about, right, what you have on your resume, okay? Because if you don't flow correctly, right, it's it says a lot. Like, okay, so you have so much of this on your resume, and then you can't speak to these things. Are we sure if we employ you, you're going to do well on the job? A friend was sharing with me, I was on a call with a friend just now before I came in. I'm on the call, and he's doing some applications. He's in the US, by the way, and he told me that he attended an interview, and they replied him, and they said, "We thank you for your time. You did so well in the interview, but we're trying to make the best hiring decision." So they asked him to give them some time in order for them to get back to him, as they are still reviewing some other candidates. Now, if you pay attention to what they said, they want to make the best hiring decision. So it means that, in the job market, there are not just one person looking for a job, right? There are a lot of jobs, right? Everywhere in the US and the UK, Canada, there are a lot of jobs, DevOps, cloud engineers. Organizations are moving their workloads to the cloud, so they need people that can do the job, right? But at the same time, organizations are trying to also make the best hiring decision. Okay, so which means whatever it is that you say you must be the best at that thing that you claim that you know. All right, so which means if you say you are a DevOps engineer, you must be able to, work with Jenkins, work with Docker, work with these things, and then you must be able to speak to them like a professional that you claim, all right, that you are. And that's why I'm asking us, what's the objective? What's the goal? Because I don't want us to look at a deadline and say, oh, we've been given 3 days to complete this particular module. So, well, let me just rush through it and just, click and click and click and just wrap it up so that at least I can meet the deadline. Well, that it's okay because the program says finish in 3 days, right? But I would really advise us to sit down with it, all right, and know these things, okay? Because whether you like it or not, at the end of the day, you want to attend an interview, you want to go there and then face people to tell them, oh, I am a DevOps engineer, I can use Git, I can use Docker, I can write script in Python and all of that. Okay, so your communication in the interview is actually what will let us know if indeed, all right, you know what you claim you know. Okay. So I don't know if anybody wants to tell us, what's the result, what's the end, what end do you have in mind, all right, regarding this program? Anybody that wants to share with us?
Yes. Okay. Can I go ahead, sir?
Please go ahead.
Okay. So thank you very much again for the opportunity to speak. Okay. And personally, this is now from my end. What I do currently is I teach. I teach in a school here in Port Harcourt, and
That's a good
I
one.
am looking at taking it from being a classroom teacher to becoming a tech teacher, especially in this area of DevOps and all of that. So as I was just coming back when I was preparing to join the meeting, I was just thinking, I was like, God, that I want to get to a level where my my competence, what I do with the subject I teach here, I'm as good as that in DevOps. That was just like what was ruminating in my mind. That I could get to a point where I am this good, like the way I am good now with the subject I teach, I am that good also in DevOps. So that's the end point for me. It's not something that I'll just, and I know the price. So that's why I sacrifice a lot, even though it's not looking like the results are not coming. Right now, it's looking like I'm putting in so much and the efforts are not really showing commensurate measurement of results.
Yeah.
I'll still keep it on. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Adebayo, please, you have the floor. You can go ahead.
Okay, yeah, good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah, so my question is actually is actually general. So I'm just trying to kind of understand the difference between a cloud engineer, probably a cloud developer, and a cloud DevOps. So as a cloud developer, like the overview I have primarily is you get to deal with tools like Kubernetes, Docker, and some other orchestration container-like tools. So I don't know. So as a cloud engineer, do I need to have knowledge of everything a cloud DevOps knows? Because, as a DevOps engineer, there are a lot of tools involved. So I don't know. Do I get to limit myself to some particular tools, or I still have to know all the tools that a cloud DevOps engineer use? Thank you.
All right. Let me answer that question, and then Godwin can. All right, you can ask your question. Okay. Now, when we are talking about DevOps, right, or let's talk about cloud engineering in general. Now, the reason why cloud engineering is kind of odd now is because now there's what you call capital expenditure and what you call operational expenses, right? Now, you're right, some few years back, or even now, right, we see organizations that they have all their IT infrastructure within their organization. Okay, a good example would be the banks in Nigeria, for example, right? All the servers, the Active Directory servers and all that they use, it can be at the headquarters or maybe the regional offices. Okay, so they host all of those things. Now, hosting those infrastructure requires a lot of effort. Okay, so which means as an organization, you have to cater for power, you have to cater for cooling, you have to cater for a lot of things, and then you're also going to need quite a number of staff members. And you need somebody that can handle the database, somebody that can handle the network, somebody that can handle the system administration and all those kind of stuff, right? So there's a lot of overhead, okay, hosting all of those things within your organization, okay, because you have to take care of a lot of things, right? Now, cloud computing came about as a result of virtualization. So there's this technology called virtualization. So what is virtualization? Let me just show us, okay? I was speaking about these things. Let me just share my own screen so that we can really understand these things. Now, if you can see my own screen, I have an Oracle VirtualBox here. right? I have an Oracle VirtualBox here. I'm just trying to break everything down so that we can understand where all these things, where all these things started from, okay? So I have an Oracle VirtualBox. I'm trying to bring it up. Okay, it's still coming up, so let's wait for it. Now, cloud computing started as a result of virtualization, okay? And then we have a few virtualization companies and technologies. So Microsoft Hyper-V is one of them. There's the VMware, EXSI, there's the Oracle VM, which I want to show us now. Now, the goal of virtualization is to say that, for example, in an organization, you have a server, let's just say a system, right? At least just to make it simple. So let's say you have a system. Now, that particular system, you have, all right, applications within your organization that you run, okay? So you have maybe, let's just say, a normal inventory application. Now, your inventory application will need a database to store those records, right? And then you also need a front-end application. You may need a back-end application, right? That will do all the processing behind the scene. And then the front end where people can search and check, okay, what do we have in stock? What material is out of stock and all of that, okay? Now, in a traditional environment, which is what they call the on-prem, right, on-premises. So you have a single server, you have your database installed on that single server, you have everything on a single server. Now, the disadvantage of that is that's a single point of failure, because if that single server goes down, if there's an hardware failure, it means that you can't use the inventory system, okay? Now, if that happens, okay, the organization will have to look for a way to ensure that we don't want to lose, right, every of our data. So why not let's find a way to, separate our database from the back end and then maybe from the application code generally, okay? Now, somebody can come up with an idea and say, okay, let us virtualize. So what does virtualization mean, right? So we can still use the single server, but in this case, we have an hypervisor, all right, that we have installed on that single server. Now, this is an example of an hypervisor. I have a few OS running on it, right? So this is an example of an hypervisor. Now, we have type 1 hypervisor and we have type 2 hypervisors. Now, type 1, an example of a type 1 hypervisor is the VMware EXSI. So, and the difference between the type 1 and type 2 is that for the type 1, you can install it just more like an operating system on a bare metal system, okay? So bare metal is a system that does not have any operating system. All right. In other words, so if you go to Ikeja, if you tell them you want to buy a FreeDOS operating system, right, that's a bare metal system. So which means it doesn't come with any operating system installed. It's just the memory, the hard disk, and that's all. Right. So you get that particular system, and then you install a type 1 hypervisor on it, and then you can now begin to install different operating system on that particular hypervisor. Right. So in enterprise, that's what they use. Okay, your AWS and all of that, Google Cloud, Azure and all that, everything is built on top of a type 1 hypervisor, right? So now a type 2 is an example that I'm showing us now, which is an Oracle virtual machine, Oracle VirtualBox rather. So on this one, I can also run different operating system, but of course I have to install an operating system, and then I will install the type 2 hypervisor, which is this VirtualBox on top of that operating system. And then I can begin to have different versions of operating system that I want to install on that. Now, back to the example that we just gave. So this is a system, all right? And then I have two virtual machines, right, on that same system. So one is hosting my database, one is hosting my application code. So if something happens to the one, right, to the virtual machine hosting my application code, at least I have some relief that my database OS is secure, is safe, and then I have not lost, any of my data, right? But then that means you have to be a lot careful in that space, right? In that environment, you have to be very careful. You have to do regular backup in case anything happens and all that. And then came the cloud computing era. So which means now instead of worrying about buying servers, instead of worrying about network, instead of worrying about the infrastructure that you need to run your business, okay? Now, some people came together to say, you know what, we have the money and we are going to make the investment. Okay, so Amazon started it. So they are, of course, is the largest is the largest public cloud provider by market share. I think around 33% of the market. They control it, followed by Azure, and then you have Google Cloud. Okay, now they invested in data centers, basically just data centers. So thousands and millions of servers in different locations. So you have regions, you have availability zones, and all of those kind of things. They have all of that there. Now, by the time they started all of that, then you now began to see new roles emerge. And then you have things like cloud engineer, cloud infrastructure engineer, AWS solutions architect, and all of that. Now, to answer your question now directly, after providing all those details that I just provided, a cloud engineer, the job of a cloud engineer is to manage the infrastructure. Now, it is similar to what you do on-prem. On-prem, what do you do on-prem? You check the server to make sure that the server is running efficiently. You ensure that your network is fine, that there are no, unwanted traffic coming into your network. Okay, you ensure that your systems are up to date. You install the patches regularly and all of that. That's what you do basically on premises, right? If you're an engineer with an organization. Okay. Now, in the cloud environment, you do pretty much the same thing. So ensuring that infrastructure, so which means the system that your organization is using, that is hosting the application code and all of that, your database system, like your RDS and things like that, your duty is to ensure that those infrastructure are running and they are delivering, all right, as expected. Okay, so which means they are serving the purpose that they should serve. And then you also have monitoring as well to ensure that if there's any outage, you get, an alert, or maybe by mail or something to tell you, oh, this service is out, and then you quickly rectify all of that issue. So a cloud engineer is somebody that actually deals with the infrastructure. So managing, deploying, all right, setting up infrastructure, all right, for an organization. Now, on the other hand, a DevOps engineer also does something related to a cloud engineer, but then has some, all right, some other responsibilities added to that. Now, DevOps came about as a result of, there's development and there's operations, right? Now, in the on-prem setting, both teams they work differently, right? So there's really no synergy between both teams, right? So, and then we're using the normal software development lifecycle, which is the waterfall model and some other models. So the developers, they develop their code, send it to the operations run it, and then there are errors. The developer says, well, you know what? I've tested it, the code is working. Operations team are saying, we are checking it, the code is not working as it should, and all of that. So there's a lot of issues and there's a lot of errors, right? Now, DevOps is in itself, it's a philosophy that translated into a job role, right? So DevOps is a philosophy that translated into a job role, okay? Now, DevOps is something that is applicable in every organization, okay? It's not just an IT thing. Like I said, it's a philosophy, but then that philosophy now has translated into a job role. Now, the philosophy behind DevOps is this. Now, we want to automate every process as much as possible, particularly software development process. Okay. Now, let me give you a very relatable example. All of us, I'm sure, we have Android phones. I'm sure some of us are using iPhone, iPad, and all of that. Now, you will observe that, at intervals, if you look at the applications that you have on your mobile phone, for example, let's say maybe you're a game lover, for example, and then you have this game on your mobile phone, and then after some time you get a notification, you go to a Play Store, it tells you to update. All right, you update it, and then after a few moments, maybe let's say like 2 weeks down the line or 1 week down the line, the same application you just updated is asking to update again. Now, the question you want to ask yourself is, how is this so quick, or how are these people, how are they doing it such that they release updates, right, like almost every week? That's a very, it's coming at a very fast pace, right? Now, that's the job of DevOps, all right? That's the idea behind DevOps. To say, you know what? The waterfall model, now, it's a lot of headache for us, which means you have to gather requirements, do everything one step at a time. If you don't finish a particular level, you can't go to the next level. Now, DevOps is something that integrates the agile methodology, okay? Now, the agile methodology is that you don't wait for everything to be perfect. Start with something, push it out to the market, let the market test it, get their feedback, and use the feedback to improve, all right, what you have given to them. And that is why, if you look at it here also, you will discover that in Nigeria, in different part of the world, we have a lot of fintech organizations that are just springing up like almost every day. You know, there's this fintech application, there's this fintech app. The question is, how is it so easy for these guys to just come up with all these applications and then they tell you, oh, you can make payments using this app, you can make payment using this app and all of that. It's just DevOps is what is bringing out all of those things. And cloud is also helping them. Because initially, if you want to start a company, you need a building. Okay, you need a building, you need a space, you need the office staff, you need members in the office. But these days, you can be in the comfort of your room, go to your AWS portal, launch up a system, or run a particular code, expose it to the rest of the world, and then let them test it. You don't even need an office space, all right, to have a company, to have a startup. Okay, so everything started up, you know, from that, and then you have a lot of companies coming up now. Okay, everybody's, you know, cloud is helping everybody. You don't need an office space, you don't need the system, you don't need, you know, too many people. You can just have like 3 people connecting from different locations in the world, and they are working, they are doing something, they're improving on the code, they're getting people's feedback, and you know, they are doing all of that. So the job of a DevOps engineer basically is to ensure that this system, now the infrastructure, okay, that a cloud engineer has built, which of course the DevOps engineer should also be able to manage, is to ensure that that infrastructure is able to deliver, all right, whatever software the organization is using in an efficient manner. Okay, so which means if you have a timeline to release a code in the next 2 days, you have an infrastructure that can ensure that the code is released in an efficient manner, securely as well. All right, so the job of the DevOps engineer is to build out what you call the CI/CD pipeline, the code integration and code deployment pipeline. And within those pipelines, you have security integrated into it, making sure that whatever code that your developers have developed, right, whatever code they have developed, you ensure that that code is secure enough to be released to the users. And that's why in a DevOps system, like if you look at your Play Store and all of those things, when you're downloading an application, you see that there's a review section. Now that review section is not just there. All those things that you type in the review section to say, oh, I downloaded the app today, the app worked very fine, but then I discovered that when I was trying to check out, it hung for 15 minutes, I wasn't able to complete my transaction. Now, all of those comments that you put in the review section, the people who develop the application, they take all of those comments back and then they use it to improve upon the application. And that is why you discover that at almost every week, you always have one app or the other to update on the mobile phone. Okay, because those guys are taking the reviews that you are dropping in the review section of the Play Store, they are working on it, and then at intervals, they keep releasing code onto you. For some of us now, if you check your phone, now if you go to your Play Store, to your Apple Store, you see that you have some apps that have already been lined up for updates. Okay, so some of them, maybe they've been due for update for 3 days, for 4 days, that you've not checked them and all of that. So those updates is something that is regular. So the job of a DevOps engineer is to ensure that there's the system that does that job, all right, is efficient at what it does, and making sure that your clients and everybody, they get what they want at the right time, all right, and then whatever code that you're pushing out to production is also secure. Okay, so the cloud engineer on the one hand deals with the infrastructure. The DevOps engineer on the other hand ensures that that infrastructure is able to do its job efficiently. So for a cloud engineer, for a DevOps engineer, you include things like monitoring. You have things like infrastructure as code. You have things like Python scripting to ensure that you can automate your task as much as possible. All right, you don't want to go to the console and be doing things manually and all of that. So basically, that's just the difference between a DevOps engineer and a cloud engineer. Okay, I don't know if I've provided answer to that question. Oh,
Yes, thank you, sir.
okay. All right. Yeah, I think somebody was raising up. Mr. Godwin, your hand was raised earlier.
Yes, I was raising up my hand, but along the line, you actually addressed a lot of concerns, so. But going back to the initial question you asked about the objective of learning what we hope to achieve and all that
Okay.
I appreciate the introduction or the opening you gave us on that, because I equally feel that is important. Most of the times in programs like this or boot camps like this, it's always good to place, learning, even in as much as completing a task is important, learning and developing, those skills, is equally important. And I could also see the impact, like in what I'm learning right now, the Python course, even if I've taken, some other Python course, actually all courses cannot be the same, but taking time to learn and not just rushing through, like, for example, in this Udacity course, there are some tasks whereby you have to, write some codes and test the code and all that, so if one actually placed more priority and just rushing through and finishing, you notice that, one will not be able to spend some time and practice, sometimes even after writing those codes, I was like, am I the one writing these codes? Even if I make use of resources like ChatGPT and all that, and trying to, but it's really cool. So it builds my confidence, and I'm like, I'm actually doing this thing and doing it better, so if I equally, stand with you in what you were saying about the objective. I equally feel that is also very, very important. I have a friend that is in the UK now, so she's into front end. So I was asking, okay, how how did you get this job? She's like, these guys are not really important, and they're not really just about your certificates that you have. That you actually need to, it's all about what even though the certificates and the credentials and all that are important, but when it comes to being assessed or being interviewed, they really want, just like you rightly mentioned, they really want you to speak on what's on your CV. You said this is what is what's on your CV. So speak on it and let's know if you really know this. So I think it's, having that as a key objective and building on that as, along the learning, the learning path, I think is important to have that, for us to have that at the back of our mind, so that at the end of the day, we can proudly, say that we are not just DevOps or cloud engineers on paper, but actually on in the practical, in the practical, sense. Yes. Thank you very much.
All right. Mr. Shin Ogundipe. You can go ahead, please.
Okay, sir. Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity and the explanation. Well detailed. So my question is regards our laptops. Can you specify a requirement, the kind of laptops we'll be using? Because it has to be a high-end that can be able to contain a lot of virtualizations and those servers, so we don't have an hanging laptop. Can you just describe a requirement for an ideal laptop so one can really have a smooth experience?
Well, I think an ideal one would be that if you have at least a Core i5 laptop. Sorry, just a minute, please. If you have a Core i5 laptop, and I think the RAM should be around 16 gig. Okay, So if you have a Core i5, like four CPUs and all that, okay, then the RAM will be 16 gig of RAM, then at least 1 terabyte of hard drive. At least that should still do, that should still be able to help you run a few things. Okay. And in terms of what you're going to be doing also in the course of learning DevOps, quite a number of the things you're going to be doing, you may not necessarily have to install some of those things, okay, on your system, because you're going to get to a point where you're going to be doing some deployment using cloud resources like AWS. Okay, so for example, if you want to deploy a Nexus repository, for example, for me, I won't advise you do that on your own system. You could just use an EC2 instance on AWS to host that. As a matter of fact, let me just show you, I have some, let me see. Okay, I didn't sign out of my account, so that's okay. So if you go to my EC2 section here, you will see that because there are a few things that I also do that I really do not host directly on my system. Okay, so for example, your Jenkins server, I want to advise you host the Jenkins server in your system. So if you can look at it here, I have a Jenkins server, which is a T3 medium. T3 medium is not another free tier on AWS. It's actually, you're right, you're actually going to get billed for it. But one thing I will discover is if you are using it and then you are no longer needing it for the meantime, you can stop it. So once you stop it, they won't charge you if it's not running. Okay. So you can see that I have T3 medium here, I have another T3 medium here, and then I have some T2 micros. Those T2 micros are under the free tier, right? So the T2 micros are more like my Docker server. Then I have a Nexus server, then I have an Ubuntu one, and then there's this one that I just launched today, which is for Cloud9, okay? So quite a number of the things you're going to be doing going forward, even your Git as well. If you want to practice Git, I will advise you use what I call Vagrant. If you look at here, I have this Git bash, right, that I have here. So, and then I have this application called Vagrant. I don't know if you heard of Vagrant before. For example, Vagrant is useful if you don't want to host things on the AWS cloud. Maybe you are afraid of being charged or something like that. You can actually use Vagrant with your virtual box. So that way you can also have some some Ubuntu or some Linux operating system on your system, and then you can control the memory and the CPU, right, that they can use. Okay. So the Vagrant works in this way. For example, I have some CentOS here that are running. This is an Ubuntu server. If you look at it here, I have just 512 MB of RAM allocated to them because a Linux system does not really require so much of memory and hard drive. Okay, particularly if you're not running something so serious, right? And then, so you can use Vagrant also to launch this VM. Like I have, for example, now I have a CentOS that is running. I'm actually doing some, because I also run some classes online on DevOps. All right, so I have a CentOS running here. So this is the CentOS server that I'm on at the moment. Okay, so with this one, if I don't want to use the AWS cloud, I could just use the Vagrant, okay, to host my Linux operating system. Okay, but then if you're having issues with the Vagrant, maybe you have a system that is not so powerful. Okay, maybe a 4 gig RAM system and all of that, and then putting all those things might be a little bit of challenge. For like the system that I'm using now, it's a Core i7 system, all right, and it's 16 gig of RAM at least. Okay, so but of course, what I advise my student mostly is if you have a system that is not, that you can't really install so many things upon, I'll advise you go with another service in AWS that is called Cloud9, right? So you can also use Cloud9 to do some practice. So you can install, so like this one now, I just deployed it today. Okay, it was just deployed today. I wanted to test something out. So the purpose of this Cloud9 is that it gives you more like an integrated environment. So you have the Linux interface, and you also have the like the Visual Studio Code interface where you can write your scripts, all right, and all of that. So you can use all of all these tools, all of them together. So depending on your system, but ideally a Core i5 system, a 16 gig of RAM system, I think with that one at least would help you, right, to run whatever it is that you want to run. And as much as possible to try to leverage, all those AWS cloud resources to do your job, okay, so that you don't just install different things on your system. And if you can use Vagrant as well, I think Vagrant is also a very good tool. You can download it from here. You can just do Vagrant. So the Vagrant boxes are here. They call them boxes. So all the operating system in Vagrant are called boxes. So if you want to do any installation on your Windows operating system and you want to install the Vagrant, I recommend that you use Choco. Okay, Chocolati. It's a way to install things on your Windows operating system, all right, through the command line. Okay, so if I don't want to install anything, normally for a Windows operating system, if you want to install anything, you go to maybe, let's say, what can I install and check for something? Let's say I want to install Zoom, for example. Okay, Zoom download. All right, so if I want to install Zoom, I can click here. Okay, and then I can go to Zoom, download it, and then run it on my system. Now, there's a downside to that. Okay, there's a downside to that. So which means I download it and then I'll start to run the exe. Now, there are some applications that require you to configure the paths in your operating system. For example, if you're installing Python, you need to add the Python variable or the Python path to your environmental variable. Okay, so that if you open any terminal, you can run your Python script, all right, anywhere. Okay, now the benefit of using Choco, all right, is that it does all of those processes for you automatically. So if you want to install that, you can just do Chocolati install, so just to get the installation page. So if you open it in a new tab, that would open up for you right here. So you can run these few commands, all right, this command here. So if you check, just to check if your Chocolati is fine, and then you can do that using your PowerShell, okay? So you can do that using PowerShell. So you can run your PowerShell as an administrator. So you run this as an administrator, and then you can just run this. You can copy this one. All right, copy, paste, and then just to check if you can install Chocolate. So if you have this, it tells you everything is good. But if everything is not good, it tells you if it returns restricted, and you can just run this command to uncheck that. And so once that is done, you can then copy this whole thing here. All right, and go to your PowerShell, paste it there. Oops, sorry. Let me copy that again. So copy and paste. So once you install the Chocolati, then you can begin to now do Choco install this, Choco install that. So it makes it easy for you to install anything that you want to install. Okay. So if you install this, I think I already have done that already, so I really don't need to do this. Okay, so then you can now go to the Chocolati community. So if you have anything that you want to install, you can just go here and then type in. So if I want to install the Vagrant, for example, I can just type Vagrant and then press enter. So this is the Vagrant. So I can just copy this. All right, and then go to my PowerShell and paste it there, Choco install. Then remember to put -Y to accept all the default and then install it. So it will install the Vagrant for you. So once the Vagrant has been installed, you can just go here to pick any OS that you want, any Linux operating system in particular. So let's say you're looking for Ubuntu 22. So you can search for that, and then, okay, so you can click here, and then you can copy this. Okay, let me show you. So copy, and then you can go to your PowerShell. All right, so once you have Vagrant installed, you can go to your PowerShell and then do Vagrant. All right. Okay, before you do that, you can go to the root directory. So cd, I want to go to where I want my Vagrant to be installed. All right, so documents, Vagrant files. Okay, so I can make a directory in this particular place and then call it Ubuntu VM22. Okay, so the directory has been made. So I'll do cd to change directory into that particular place. Ubuntu VM22. Let me clear my screen here, and then I can do Vagrant init, and then, all right, the name of what I want to initialize. So I want to install this operating system. Okay, Ubuntu 22, and then I'll press enter. So this will download a Vagrant file for me, right? So to download the Vagrant file, so once the Vagrant file has been downloaded, then I can begin to I can launch my Ubuntu VM and then use it to practice. So like the Git that you did, you can use this particular OS to do the Git practice and all of that. So you don't have to really necessarily install that Git on your own operating system. Okay, so you can use things like this. So Vagrant, okay, is been initialized. So all I need to do now is to say Vagrant up to bring up the VM. Okay, so that will bring up the VM. So it's checking it out already. So once the VM is up, then I can let me just show us. Then you can go to your GitHub account. Okay, to let me open my GitHub. I think I have it open already. Okay, so yeah, I have it open already. So I can go to my GitHub account and then I can go here to okay, create a new repository. Let's create a new one. Okay. So let's call this cloud developer. Okay. So let's say A cloud developers A and B. Okay. So I can say this one, I want it to be private, I want it to be public, whichever one it is. Okay, and then I can create the repository. The repository created. All right, so my Vagrant is installing. So now with this Vagrant file that I've installed, it won't consume so much memory on my system. So with this one, if I don't want to use the AWS cloud option, right, I can also use this. So this will not consume a lot of resources. And then of course, for the Linux OS, there's no GUI anyway, just plain command line. So, and that way you would really save a lot of resources, because when you install things that have some GUIs, that will take a lot of space. Okay, so but with this, it's just the CLI. So you just run your commands, and so you can interact with your Git account from here. And so that way, somehow you're also protecting your system, so that in case you want to break anything, it won't affect your own operating system. Okay, so you can do whatever breaking you want to do using this kind of system. So if this one has an issue, you can install another one and just keep trying. Okay, so that's the way if I want to learn anything, I prefer to use, I don't install things directly on my operating system. So I use systems like this, okay, to install, so that in case anything gets missing, or I break anything, or I do something that can interfere with my system generally, at least I know that I'm in a kind of a safe environment, okay, so that if anything happens, I can still get my system, but all I need to do is just to delete it and start it all over again until I get, until I get it. Okay, so that's another way that you can also do it. Do we still have any other question? So while we wait for this one to come up. I don't know if I've answered your question, Mr. Asho. Have I answered your question?
Yes. Very well, yes.
Okay, all right. Any other question? You can unmute yourself if you have any question. So like my VM is up. So if I clear my screen, I can do clear screen from here, just clear it up. So if I do Vagrant SSH, so that's to log in into my Ubuntu VM that I just deployed. All right. Okay. If you have any question, you can unmute your mic and ask your question.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for this particular explanation. Let me just share one little experience I had yesterday. I was just trying to see how I can just install this VM on my own computer. So I went to YouTube, and then I was watching. I got a lot of videos. Some of them were confusing, but this one I went through, and it said how to convert your BIOS from legacy to, is it UEFI something?
Yeah, UEFI.
But seriously, I followed through. I got to a point I couldn't know what to do again. I was just stuck. So I had to take the computer to my friend that he's a software, like not into coding, but he does all these installations. And he helped me out, and I was like, thank God. So thank you very much, sir, for this explanation. Next time, I'm not going to try it directly. I'll try and say I can use.
It's better to just use a safe environment to just do all of those practices so that you don't break things. And of course, if you want to use Vagrant and you want to use the VirtualBox, you must make sure that virtualization is enabled in your BIOS. Okay, because if it's not enabled, your virtual machine is not going to run. Okay, so you have to enable that in your BIOS. So for example, if I want to practice this, all I need to do is just to, sudo IES. I'm trying to elevate my privileges, all right, to being a root user and all of that. So if let's say I go to this directory, and let me just go to one directory. So I'm in the opt, so let me make a directory from here, and then let me call it, we can call this, okay, cloud developer. So let's call this cloud developer, right? So the directory has been made. So if I do ls, so ls is just to view the content of that directory, right? So I'm seeing it. So if I change directory to that particular place, cloud developer, so I'm in. So let me clear my screen again. So I'm in the cloud developer directory now. So I can do git and then initialization. So I want to initialize that particular folder as a git repository. So I can do my enter and all of that. Okay, nice one. So what's it saying? Using master as the blah, blah, blah. It was giving us some errors. I'm sure some of us have seen some of these errors, here and there, which is okay. But of course, you still initialize the repository as git, okay? And then if you do ls-a, you can see that your git folder is here. So this is the git folder right here that has been installed, okay? So now we are doing some Linux commands, okay? So let's say that I create a file. So let's do touch. So touch in Linux is to create a file. So you want to create a file in Linux, you can use touch to create it, or you can also use VI. So VI is an editor in Linux, so you can use VI. So let's just say code1.py. So to take me to an editor, so to insert a few codes and all of that. So let's just say, so if I want to type inside of this editor, I need to press I on my keyboard to insert, and then I can say print, just print a statement, and then I can say welcome to class. Okay. All right, so that's more like a Python script. Do we need to put this? Is it necessary? Okay. So let's see. I don't think that's necessary, so we can remove it. Okay. So welcome to class, escape, :WQ to save it. So you save. So if I do cat to view what I've typed, so cat is to view what you've typed, so you can see that that's the content of that particular file. So let's push this into our repository, okay? So we've gone through all of these already. So what do I need to do? I can do git add. But before I do git add, there's one more thing that I need to do. Now, there are different ways to interact with your Git repository, okay? One of them is password authentication, which has been deprecated. So the best way is to use SSH. So which means in order for me to interact with my Git repository, I need to find a way to generate an SSH key that I can have a copy on my Git repository and then a copy on my Linux machine. Now, the reason I'm using Linux is because in a real world environment, most of the time you have to interact with Linux a lot. Okay, you interact with Linux a lot, and Linux is one of the skills that you need to really have. You need to understand how to use the Linux operating system. So if I want to generate an SSH key to use with my Git repository, what I need to do is to do SSH-keygen. All right, so that will generate a public-private RSA key pair. Okay, so the public key is going to be on my GitHub account. The private key is going to be on my system. So the private key and the public key must match at every time that I want to connect, all right, with my Git account. So I'll just press enter here. I don't need any passphrase. I don't need any passphrase. Just go ahead and generate the key. So the key has been generated. So the question is, how do you get this key? All right, so the key is actually saved in your root home directory. Okay, so that's where you can get it. So you can see that the identification key has been saved in this. So this is your private key, this is your public key. Okay, so let's go to our root directory before we continue with our Git. And then if we do ls here, you won't find the .ssh folder, right? Because it's actually an hidden folder. So even if I do ls-a, I won't find it there. So I need to go into my home directory. So use the cd tilde sign is to go to the home directory, right? So you press enter. So if I do ls, okay, if I do ls-a, right? So -a is to show any other file that is hidden. Okay, so to show the hidden file, so you do ls-a. So now this is my SSH folder right here. So if I do ls, all right, .ssh, okay, so it shows me the content, right, the key that was generated. This is where they are located. So if I want to view them, I can do cat, all right, .ssh, then IDRSA. Now the IDRSA is your private key. So if I do enter, you can see that this is my private key right here. And if I do .pub, that's the public key. So that's the public key right here. So this public key and this private key must match in order for you to be able to authenticate with that particular key. All right, and that's why by the time you get into AWS, you'll be looking at things like, you know, generating a key pair to authenticate with your Linux instance. So you're going to get there. But I just want to show us how we can interact with our Git instead of using password authentication. So let me clear my screen. So what we're going to really do now is to do cat.ssh. I need to copy my public key, right? So that's .pub. I need to copy this key, the entire key, right? So I need to copy it. Okay, so copied already. I just right-clicked on it. So here now, I need to go to my settings page. Okay, so I right-click here, go to settings. And then I look for where I have SSH and GPG key or whatever. Now this one, this key here, I can delete it anyway. So let me just delete it off and then create a new one. Okay, so new SSH key. I can give this a name. I can call this, all right, let's just say developer key. Okay, developer key, just the name. Right? So here I'll paste what I copied. So this is my public key, and then add the key to this place. So it will ask me to confirm my password. So I just put that in and then continue. So the key has been added, right? So if I go back to my page here, now we can begin to interact with our Git account. Now, before you also interact with a Git account, you need to set some, some global variables. So your username and your user email. Those are global variables that you need to set. So I need to do git config and then -, so global, all right, user dot name, and then I put in my username. So my username is that's the username I'm using. And then I just call up the same command, and then I put in the email, right, for that particular account, right? So gmail.com. Then I need to change this one to, all right, email. Okay. So these are global configurations. So because if I don't do that, then I'm going to have an issue. So right now, if I go back to my opt directory ls, and then I go back to my cloud developer account, then I can begin to push whatever it is I have in that account to my Git repository. So what we have here, so it tells us to do this. So before I do that, I can do Git status to check, all right, what I have within that particular file. So there are no commits yet, but it shows me that there's the file that is on track. So if I want to add that, simply, all right, what we have learned already, so git add, that will add it. So if you do git status, it shows you that, okay, so now the git add, basically what happens with the git add is that it has moved from, right, just the on-track state to a staging state. Okay, so now the code 1.py is now in the staging area, so which means it is ready to be committed into my repository or into my remote repository. Because as it is now, all those files that I'm working on is still in my, what do we call it now? Still on my system, right, in my local repository. So the cloud developer is my local repository. So I'm trying to push this into a remote repository. Okay, so I have moved it from, the on-track state to the staging area. So staging area means it's now ready to be, right, for, we can use the production terminology. So if you're producing anything, there's the what do you call it now? There's the preparatory stage, then there's the production phase, there's the packaging phase, right? So we can basically say it has moved from production now to packaging. Okay, so it's in the staging area. Now, if I do git commit in order to commit it to say now this guy is ready to be to be shipped to our customers, right? So we want to ship it to customers. They can begin to use it now. So I can just say first commit, okay, and then so commit that. So that's been committed. Now, if I didn't do the global command that I did earlier, so which is the global config username and user email, the commit is not going to work. Okay, so that's why I did that, earlier before running all these commands. So if I do git status, I'm sure we should get a clean state. So telling us there is really nothing to commit. So, and then I can also do the git log. So if I do git log and then -, one line, so I can actually see some of the commits that I've made. So you can see that this is a commit that I made. So if I want to see a comprehensive details of my log, which is basically the history. So what I've committed so far, I can just do log, and then it tells me the author is this. You can see that it picked the username and then it picked, the email address. Okay. So and then it shows me the comments. Okay, the comment is here, and then it shows me the date at the time, and all of that. So if I want to push, so what do I push? Now, before I push, I need to authenticate with my remote repository. That is very important. So I need to type in this command here because this is the repository that I'm pushing to. So I need to let my system know that I'm going to this repository. Okay, so why is this not copying? It's also a problem. Copy, paste. Oh my goodness. What is wrong with you? Okay. Okay. Let me copy again. I don't know why it's not pasting. Okay. Now it worked. So enter. Then you can switch your branch. So git branch. Of course, your main branch is the main branch, right? Your main branch is there by default. So you can just switch, okay, to main branch. So -m, just follow the instruction to that branch, and then you can do your git push -u to say the user, the name, and then okay. Now our SSH key. So it's asking us to confirm. All right. So it's trying to connect with our Git repository. So now don't forget, we generated the SSH key on the Linux system, right? That's what we generated the SSH key. Now the public key has been copied onto the Git repository, right? It's there on GitHub already. So what this is doing is that it's trying to do an handshake, trying to check if the private key that exists in your system actually matches with the public key that is in your GitHub account. That's what it's trying to do. So I'll just say yes. And let's see if everything is fine. Of course, my push has been done, so I can clear my screen. So if I go back here to my repository, I should be able to see that. So you can see, because the code that I specified is code1.py, so it detected that as a Python script. Okay, so if you see here, the first committed 2 minutes ago, and then this is the code, just like I have it on my system. Okay. So that's just how to use the Linux environment and then use that with your GitLab. So that way, you are not really destroying anything. So even if anything happens, all right, in this particular environment, it's still okay, right? So you can destroy it, you can try it again, but at least this way, your system itself, it's safe, okay? So nothing is broken on your system. Whatever happens is within the virtual machine, and the virtual machine can be recreated, okay? So that's, I think, a better approach that you can also use instead of doing it on your system, locally. You can just use Vagrant, all right, to spin it up, and then that way you can, and that way also it will also help you to build your Linux skills and all of that. So I just thought to show us this because I know we know the git command already, so you are boss, okay? So I think I need to even learn some git from you guys. So okay, so any questions before we? Any questions? I think I have a few things to still talk to us about, but if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask a question. You can unmute yourself, please. Yes, allow participants to unmute themselves. Yes. Yes. You can unmute yourself if you have any question.
Okay, sir, thank you very much. I don't know if it is too early to ask this question now, but okay, one of my friends is already working as a DevOps. He advised that I should start thinking towards maybe building a code base and maybe on GitHub, and also building another profile on LinkedIn. So I just wanted to guide us as regarding this now. At what point do we start building the code base so that like maybe prospective or future recruiters will be able to see and get to know what we do?
Okay, now that's a good idea, right? That's a good idea, but I will advise that you take things slowly. And the reason I said that is this. Now, the course that you're taking is progressive. Now, as you go on in the course of the course, of course, you need a GitHub profile, right? But as you go on in the course of the course, you build your profile along the way. As you do those courses, there are some projects you're going to do. Now, the level that you are now, you may not really have so much, all right, in terms of project and all of that to put in your GitHub profile. That's okay. Everybody started somewhere, okay? But then I'll just advise that you open a GitHub account, have it down already. If you look at my profile here, I also have a few things that I've done. Like you can see that I have a Java Maven app here, which is talking about the Maven code build. There's the Docker Compose, Python app, Node app. These are actually trainings that I did online, which is more like a free training. Then there's the monitoring app here, which is a Python application. And then the Python application also has some code within it, which I actually sent to people. So this is, I think, this template. So, no, it's not here. I think I have, where is it? Okay, yeah. So I have some template here, some Terraform template. So for example, this is it's a CloudFormation template, which I did, okay, and I shared with the people in the course of the class. This is a CloudFormation template. So you can actually just take it slowly, okay? So finish the course, once you're done with one, you can move over to the next one. Now, by the time you get to Terraform and all that, of course, you are going to definitely have something to put, all right, in your GitHub account. But right now, you may not have so much, but just have your GitHub account ready so that as you progress, by the time you get to the code cloud training, this is actually a Terraform script, all right, to provision, all right, infrastructure in the cloud. I actually wrote all these things myself. Okay, so as you go on, you can actually, just have those things in your GitHub account, okay? Because at the level you are now, you're learning Git, so there's really nothing much that you're doing. But by the time you get to Kubernetes and Docker and those things, of course, you're going to launch some, you're going to create Docker image, you're going to have Docker file. So all of those Docker file, Docker image, they are things that you can now begin to put in your GitHub account as projects that you have done. Okay, so if you look at here, I have a Docker file here. So this is an example of a Docker file. So by the time you get to Docker, Kubernetes, you're going to have things like this that you can also put, all right, in your repository. So this is a Docker file that can help you to build a Docker image, okay, from an application. Okay, so just take it easy. So just learn the Git, know it, because as you progress, you're going to need Git. Because by the time you get to to Docker, Kubernetes, Jenkins, and all those things, you have to commit code into Git repository. Your Jenkins is going to fetch those code and build, all right, build a Docker image for you from that particular code and all that. So that way, you start building your profile gradually. Okay. Any other question? Yeah. Do we have any other question, please? Any other question? You can unmute yourself. Any other question?
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, your sound is a bit low. If you could increase the volume or something.
Okay, sorry. I said I want to ask if you will be able to have access to this recorded screen, sir.
Yeah, of course. I'll send it to the platform.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I'll
Because
send
my
it to the
network was actually really bad there, so the line was breaking so much.
Okay. There's no problem. I will do that. I'll send it to the platform. I'll send it to the platform. Any other question? Any other question? Please, this is why we are here, to ask questions, to clarify our doubt and all of that. So if you do have any question, feel free to ask anything. There's no foolish or, every question it's a question, right? So Please, if you have anything that you want to ask, if you have any doubts you want to clarify,
Okay, sir.
ask.
Okay, sir. Also, I want to also ask if this ask me questions session will be continuous. That's one. And then if we can also extend it to maybe maybe when we are trying to do the running the codes, like maybe when we are doing the Audacity course and we had a particular thing we needed to ask, if we could bring that on here to these sessions.
Yes, the AMA section is going to be continuous. I intend that we have it maybe once every 2 weeks. Okay, so that if we have anything to ask, we could just ask our questions, right? So it's not just a one-off thing. So at least I'll try, if one every 2 weeks is not possible, at least once a month, we should have interactions around the things that we are learning, okay, and then share ideas. It's going to be continuous, okay? It's not just going to be a one-time thing. Any other question? The only lady amongst us, no questions? Any questions? Question. You can unmute yourself, or I think I'm doing that already. You can unmute yourself if you have any question. Okay. The mic is not connected. Do you still have any questions? All right. Now, in the absence of that, if the absence of, okay.
Okay, sir, sorry, let me just ask this last one.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Sorry, okay. So if you are setting, let's say you want to set a career path, at least to achieving a junior DevOps engineer or something role. So how many months can you just, like when you are drawing your map, personal map now, how many months will you project and then to achieve that?
Okay. Now, now part of what I wanted to say is, is the question that you just asked, because I was about to say something in that line. Now, I see a lot of adverts online, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, people saying you can become a DevOps engineer in 3 months, in 12 weeks, that easy, blah, blah, blah. Well, they may have maybe a way that they have discovered that makes that possible. Okay, I really don't know, but in my own humble opinion, even if you are even if you are looking for a junior role, right? Everything that lasts, it requires time. Okay, and that's why a child is not given birth to in the first month of conception. Okay, it takes a whole 9 months, right, for that child to be in the womb, and then for the mother to give birth to that child. Now, let me advise us very honestly, okay, and I'm going to be very honest, right, with you. Now, the world that we have found ourselves now, it's becoming more competitive, okay, and you really have to be on top of your game, okay. So even if you're looking for a junior role, I will advise that at least, even if it's 3 months that you have to say, okay, I want to learn this thing for 3 months, then within that 3 months, you must be able to dedicate at least 3-4 hours every day. Now, my friend, who is the one who came up with this idea, is a friend. We actually went to the same secondary school, so we go way back, right? So we were having a discussion, in the course of this training, and when he called me and said, okay, mentorship and all of that, I said, okay, no problem. So, and he told me something. He said, when he was learning, right, when he was trying to get into this DevOps thing, he said something very, I find it shocking. He told me he was studying for 18 hours every day. That's what he told me. 18 hours every day. He actually had to abandon quite a number of things, and he just faced it. 18 hours. Now, when he said that, I was like, wow, that's impressive. And then you see somebody will tell you, oh, you can do this in 12 weeks. You can do this in 2 months. It's just a joke, to be very honest, because if you look at DevOps in itself, there are a lot of things that is involved, right? So you need to learn Python. Now, Python is not that you want to become a Python programmer, but of course, you need to be able to write scripts. You need to learn batch scripting, okay? You need to learn automation, Terraform. You need to learn Ansible, configuration management, and all of that. Now, if you look at it within 3 months, how are you able to understand all those things and really be able to write code and be able to manage infrastructure with all those things? Okay, because the job market, if you're looking for a junior role, don't forget, you're not the only person that is applying for that same junior role. There are people from different walks of life applying for that same junior role. And organizations will tell you, like I told us earlier, that a friend of mine attended an interview, and they told them, said, they want to make the best hiring decision. So even if it's a junior role, the best hiring decision thing will still kick in. So which means now hiring process is something that takes time, it takes a lot of money and a lot of effort. So if organizations want to employ and they want to, they need people that will come and do the job for them, they want to make sure that at least this person that wants to employ is able to do the job and is able to stay with us at least for 2 years or for 1 year. Because we don't want somebody to come in and then the person not able to do the job, or after 6 months the person leaves and then we go back again to say we want to search for candidate. It's time consuming. So they try as much as possible to employ people that they know that this guy has what we want, and he also has some extra things that we think will be beneficial to our organization. Okay, so my advice is this. If you want to really transition, or you're really interested in IT and you want to start a career in IT, you really then have to burn the midnight oil, right? You just have to go the extra mile. Okay, so if it's 3 months that you have, if it's 4 months that you have. Now, what I want to advise again is this. Now, don't let the job be that, don't let it be on your mind like, okay, I'm doing this because I want to land a job. Okay, now do it because it is something that you want to do for a very long time, and then you are looking beyond, a job that can put food on your table. You are looking at being somebody, like you said, right? Like somebody said that, the way you teach, you also want to be a pro in that field, such that, when they are looking for anybody in that field, you come highly recommended. Okay, that is what I want us to look at. So don't just look at it as, okay, this is a career that, okay, I see a lot of adverts, they tell us that there's a job in this field, there is in demand. Yes, it's in demand, but it is competitive. You are not the only one looking for that same job, okay? But focus on building your skills. Focus on building your skill sets, that when they wake you up and they tell you, can you write an Ansible script? You can write an Ansible script from your head like ChatGPT. Okay, so focus on that. Now, when you build that stamina, when you build that, all right, that particular skill there, and then you go for an interview, you are not going to do more than 2 or 3 interviews before they extend an offer to you. Okay, because you have taken your time, all right, to be grounded in that thing. Okay, but if job is what is coming first, then you may have a lot of challenge, you may have a lot of issues. Okay, but just stay focused, dedicate time to it. Sorry, I think sorry, I think my network just went out. Okay, sorry. So the little thing I just did here now, doing the SSH and all of that stuff, it's something that actually, it takes time, okay? It takes time to get mastery. So what I would just advise is, it is good if you have 3 months, you want to learn all the things, it's okay, but just know that it takes time to really be good at, all those things. Because like the person who told us that, he teaches and none of that, before you got to that level of mastery, I'm sure it didn't take you 1 year. It probably took you years, maybe 5, 10 years to get to that level of mastery, such that now when they call you to come and teach that particular subject, even if you don't go with your notes, right, you can teach your students, even if you don't go with your notes. So it takes time to get to that level of mastery. So if you also want to get to that level of mastery in IT, in any field at all right, just know that it takes time. Okay, so it takes time. So if you're ready to put in the time, put in the effort, and that was why I was asking the question, to what end, all right, are you doing this? Okay, you know, if you're doing it because somebody said, okay, there's a lot of job in DevOps in the UK and the US, yes, it's true. But of course, you're not the only person applying in Nigeria. You're not the only person applying from the UK. There are a lot of people also applying for the same role. Okay, and then the employer, they are simply going to make the best hiring decision. Okay, so just have that at the back of your mind. So please just know, like I said, that it takes time, and it may not, all right, it may not be an easy thing, because it takes a lot of effort. Okay, it may not be an easy thing. By the time you get to, you know, like the Python you're doing, by the time you move on to Ansible, to AWS and all those kind of things, you're going to encounter different errors. You're going to be doing some things, and, you know, they do it in Audacity, you see it, it works, but on your own end, it's not working and none of that. So you have to do a lot of troubleshooting. So that, you know, in that space now, you need to be really resilient. So just know that it takes time, it takes effort. By the time you put in the effort, you burn the midnight, so the job is going to come running after you. I can promise you that. Okay, so just put in the time and put in the effort, and just focus on learning now. Just focus on learning and getting better. Okay, so that's just an advice that I have for us. I don't know if there's anything anybody wants to chip in or anybody wants to ask. Okay, and I'm sure we're already on. All right, please go ahead. You wanted to ask a question?
I would like to ask, because the other time you were asking that how is it going to add to the body of knowledge, or probably what we do. I wasn't online at that time, but I want to know this DevOps. How is it really? Is it interwoven? Can it be interrelated to other disciplines? For instance, I'm a design engineer. I design using AutoCAD and a Revit map as well, but I want to use it in such a way that I can incorporate this my design skill with respect to these IT skills as well. So, is there any way I can? Is there a way that they are interwoven, that they can be of use or of help to one another, to other disciplines? That's my major question now.
All right, that's a very good one. Yeah, it is actually interwoven. Now, I said something, I don't know if you were online, that DevOps is a philosophy. Okay, now it's a philosophy that translates, or that actually metamorphosed, all right, into a role. Okay, so now you now have DevOps engineer and all of that. Now it's good you're an architect and all of that, but let's look at it like this. Now, when, you know, in those days, before AutoCAD, before Revit, before ArchiCAD and all those softwares, right? Before all of those softwares came about, people were drawing with their hands, right? They have their board, they have their TD board, they draw and all of that. And then gradually, we began to have softwares that can do all of that, you know, for us. And then the softwares now, they also metamorphosed into things like you can actually do certain designs and automate stuff, all right, which are, you know, with all those softwares. I was watching something recently like Adobe. You know, this Adobe, I've forgotten the name of software, but it's one of these Adobe software for animations that you can just pick something and put it there, and then it does something for you automatically. So basically, they are integrating AI, machine learning, with all of these softwares and all of that. Now, that is basically what DevOps is about: improving processes. Okay, that's what DevOps is about: improving processes. Now, I'm sure all of us have heard about 5G. So now it is possible that somebody is in London, and then somebody's in Nigeria, and they can perform surgery on somebody in Nigeria from London, just courtesy of 5G. All right. So DevOps is just, how can we make this process easier? That's what DevOps is about. So it cuts across every organization, every industry, everything that we do on a daily basis, right? It's cut across all those things. So automation, That's what every organization is trying to achieve now. Everybody's trying to automate their processes as much as possible. Now, all these retrenchment that you see in the tech sector, AWS retrenching people, Google Cloud telling people to go and all of that, it's just automation is gradually taking over certain things. And that's why I said, for those that would get jobs in the near future, there will be people that really are in the top 2%. Okay, because nobody's going to hire you to come and do what they can write a script to do. Okay, and that's why I try to advise people against depending solely on ChatGPT. ChatGPT is good, it's an excellent idea, it's good, but if you are not careful, it will render your brain useless because it will take away your ability to think. All right. So if you want to use ChatGPT, use it for things like, okay, maybe you're dealing with a code, there's an issue with your code. You can put it there, let ChatGPT give you an explanation, and then you take it, understand what ChatGPT has done, so that next time you don't have to go to ChatGPT again for that same explanation. Okay, so that you don't abstract your thinking, all right, to an AI machine. And those guys, that's what they're trying to do. They are creating the thing, and then that thing is taking away your own thinking while they are building the stuff. By the time you get to the job market is looking for people who can think and they can use their own brain to develop things. They're not looking for people that will outsource their thinking to ChatGPT. All right. So DevOps cuts across every organization. Everybody wants to automate processes. Everybody wants to make things easy. Everybody wants to make, all right, as much as possible, deploy things in a faster manner. So it cuts across every organization. So if it's something that if you know alongside your skills in designing and all that, it's even good because you can transition to roles like becoming a cloud architect, or maybe somebody like a platform engineer or a site reliability engineer. You can transition to such roles, right? Because you already have the design skills, you can design things, so which means you can design systems. So for organizations that want to deploy the architecture to the cloud, you can design an architecture for them to say, okay, for this deployment, let me come up with an architecture. So you can begin to use tools like Draw.io and all of that to design architectures for organizations, so you can transition. So it also works all right for you as well, okay? So it's something that's good for everybody, okay?
Thank you so much. You nailed it. Thank you.
All right. So any questions? That's why we are here. I think we have a few more minutes. Okay, 15 minutes to go. Any questions? Any questions? You can unmute yourself if you have any questions, or you can raise up your hand if you have any questions.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay, sir. Before I say what I want to say, I just want to thank you. Like, this session is the value that we are getting from this session is really what I can't quantify. Thank you very much for taking out this time to impacting us. I just want to tell you that I know with my teammates, we're not going to disappoint you. We're going to take this program to the end, and we're going to become very great DevOps guys in the future. Okay, so sir, my question now is on balance. Can you give us a little bit of maybe practical experience on your own part on how you were able to balance because okay, all these things, the desire, the passion, you want to really do this thing, but there is a paid job that is putting food on your table, and it's in Nigeria now, it's demanding your 7 a.m. sometimes to 5-6 p.m. So how were you able to balance these two things such that this your secular job does not suffer, and then maybe this your transition also do not suffer?
That is a good question. That's a good one. Now, let me share from my experience. I am somebody that believes that what is worth doing at all is worth doing well, right? And I also believe that I don't like mediocrity, okay? So what I do is I don't wait for people to push me to tell me, oh, you need to start doing this. Okay, so which means I have like a picture of where I want to be, and I want to be the best, right, that there is in whatever it is that I do. Okay, so even in my secular job, my day-to-day, where I work at the moment, I strive to be the best version, okay, of myself, such that you become so valuable that the organization will find it difficult to let you go. Now, let me give you an example. I run a few training online. There's a DevOps training that I'm doing currently, and we just finished the batch scripting and Linux. We're starting Git on Saturday, and I have people from different places. To the glory of God, people from the US, from the UK, from India, and all that. Something happened on Wednesday because we have classes Wednesdays and Saturdays. So the Wednesday class is actually in the midnight in Nigeria, which is 1 a.m. Nigerian time. All right, and that's so I went home to just relax a bit. And Nigeria, we have a lot of issues, power issue, network, and all of that. I didn't know. I just kind of slept off, and I woke up around 12:55 a.m. My wife actually woke me up. I had to leave my home 12:55 in the midnight to go and teach people. All right. And then from 1 a.m., I stayed up to like 3 a.m. teaching. It's a lot of sacrifice, right? 1 a.m. to like 4 a.m. I was up there teaching, answering questions, all right, and all of those kind of things. Now, the training I'm doing is not because they paid me so much. If I tell you how much they paid you, even laugh, compared to the sacrifice. But it's just what you have to do sometimes, all right? Just giving back and just trying to encourage people, help people, and all that. So if you really are interested in things, you want to be the best, you want to learn, you want to, you don't want to live that mediocre life and all of that. You just have to put in the effort. And that's why I tell people, you see all these people telling you, you can become this in 12 months. Well, for the most part, I think most people are just interested in the money you want to pay because they won't really tell you the truth. The person that is telling you to come and learn something in 12 weeks, ask that person how long it took him or her to get to where they are now. It took them years. So how come you are not telling people that you can do it in 12? It's a lot of sacrifice, right? Now, after this, if I drop this call with you now, I'm not going home to sleep. I probably go home and then sleep around 1 a.m. or so because I still have a lot of learning to do. In IT, you have to just learn every time. I have a lot of things to do. I have a lot of practice I have to do myself. I have another class tomorrow. I have to prepare and all of those kind of things. So it's just it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of dedication and things like that. And for me, like I said, I don't wait for people to push me and all that. And I for example, by God's grace, I attend the Redeemed Christian Church of God, and I can say that my general overseer is a big influence on my own life personally, because each time I look at that man's life, the man is 81 years old, and he walks like he's still 30. So I ask myself, if somebody who is 81 is walking as if, what else is Pastor Debo looking for? You understand what I'm saying? What else is he looking for? But at 81, his commitment is crazy, if I could use that word. So I look at myself and I look at my age that if an 81-year-old man, he can give birth to me like 4 times. If he's working so hard like this, and I say that such a person is my role model, I also want to be great in my field, then I don't have any excuse. I just have to work. I don't have any excuse, except I just want to be there and then, just be messing around and not. But if I want to really do something serious with my life, and then they are calling people up to say, oh, we want to honor people, we want to do this, then I just have to put in the work. All right. So I draw inspiration from those kind of people, right? And I told you an example now that my friend who put this thing together also told me when he was learning, he spent 18 hours a day learning. That's crazy. There's no better way to this. That's crazy. Now, one of the trainings that we did in January, I did some AWS training in January. Now, the guy, quite a number of those guys were from the US. So one of them, I was interacting with him and then we were just talking, and then he told me, he said he has a daughter and the wife is pregnant, and he also works 2 jobs in the US. Now, listen, he works 2 jobs. He has a daughter, the wife is pregnant. So basically, he's the one taking care of the daughter, taking care of a pregnant wife, and he still had to attend to his 2 jobs. And at the same time, the guy told me that at least he spends 3 hours every day going over all the things that we have learned, that I teach them in the class. I was like, people can be this committed. So you work 2 jobs, you have a daughter to take care of, you have a wife that is pregnant, you're expecting a baby, you have to perform at your 2 jobs efficiently, all right, so that you can get your money and all of that. And then you are attending a training and you still have 3 hours every day to dedicate to the things that you are being taught in the class. Guys, That's just the spirit. You understand what I'm saying? That's the spirit. It's not something that you don't just get there. Like, it doesn't happen by chance. All right, it does not happen by chance. And that's why I tell people, see, I won't deceive anybody. You know, some people will tell you, oh, you can become a cloud engineer without coding. And tell you, they are just deceiving you. There's no IT job that you want to do now that does not require that you have a knowledge of coding. And how do you get all those knowledge? It's sitting down and learning. Time, effort, perseverance, right? The spirit of saying no. Okay. I tell myself every time, I don't have any excuse. I just have to do this. Even if I apply today and they tell me, we're sorry, we're not moving on with your application, it won't stop me. I was giving an example to my wife a couple of days back, and I said, see, the man who invented the light bulb, all right, tried 999 times, all right? It was at the 1000th time that he succeeded. So imagine if he gave up at the 900th time. Imagine if he gave up at the 988th time, right? He wouldn't have invented it. And of course, wouldn't have known his name today. Somebody maybe years later will have done that, and then it is that person that we're going to be praising and say, oh, it is this person. But we know that somebody spent a great deal of time, but the man didn't stop. He just kept at it. And today we are shouting, oh, the father of this, the father of electricity, the father, you know. So that time is what I think we need. All right. If you can put in the effort, put in the time, perseverance. If you get home, maybe you go to work, you get home by 5 or 6. Try as much as possible. If you, let's say, if the light in your neighborhood is not good, if you have a good laptop that the battery is good, if the battery can take you for 2 hours, spend those 2 hours just focused on learning. At least even if it's 2 hours a day, right, that you can put in. Your mobile phone that you're using too, you can reduce the number of hours you spend on Facebook and all those places. You can also use your mobile phone to watch the videos, right? Thank God that most of these, you know, Udacity and all of them, they have the mobile applications and all that. So you can just, you know, turn your, if your laptop is not working, charge your phone, put on your mobile phone. And then for me, I'm a fan of, you know, writing. I like writing. So if I'm learning anything, I have my notebook with me and I write. So that whatever, if my system is not there, I can write, and then if my system is up, I can go back to my laptop, whatever it is that I've written, I try it out and I learn that way. So that way, I don't just say, oh, because my laptop is not charged, you know, that's why I've not learned. No, if my phone is there and I have data on my phone, I can use my phone to also watch the videos and then have my notes in front of me, take notes, right? All the commands, all the codes, and all the processes, I write it down in my notes. So when my laptop is up, I put it on and then I practice. If there's any mistake that I make, I can go back to the video on my phone, look at it and say, oh, okay, that's why I missed it. And then I take notes and I do the correction in my notes again, and then I go back to it. So that way, gradually, you know, you are building up yourself. All right, you're building up yourself gradually. Okay, and then when time you get to an interview and you're discussing, they know that, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. All right, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's not just somebody that I just cooked up something. Because another thing that some of these trainers will tell you is, you know, just put a lot of things on your CV, make your CV robust. I tell people, anything that you have on your CV, make sure that it is something that you can defend. Because in an interview, nobody's going to tell you up front that these are the questions we want to ask you. Nobody tells you that. They just, you know, all you see is just the job description. This is what we want. This is what we want the candidate to have and all that. But in an interview, you can't determine the questions they are going to ask you. So whatever it is that you have on your CV, ensure that it is something you can answer. Because in the job market overseas, especially in the developed world, by the time you go for an interview, they ask you questions based on the things that you say you have on your CV. You know, it's only in Nigeria that you can do paddy, you know, this one is my son, even if he's qualified or not, you put him there. But over there, they make the best hiring decision. So if you have anything on your CV and they are asking you what you have on your CV and you cannot respond to it, they just said, okay, it's okay, I got it, don't worry, we'll get back to you, get back to you, get back to you. They moved on. That's just the truth. All right, so please, time is what we need. Put in the time, put in the effort, and I tell you, getting a job is easy as anything. If you have the right skill set, you have the right mindset, you know, you put in the effort, you put in the time. Getting a job is going to be a walk in the park. Even if you don't get a job, you can become a consultant on your own and just consult for people, do projects for them, and get your money and get your time. Okay, so that's just my 2 cents. Okay. Any other questions before we move? Any other question before we move? Like, you know, like we say in Nigeria, we move. Okay. Do we have any other questions before we move? Any other questions? Wow. Why are we this room is quiet. I really don't like it quiet like this. It's good to interact.
We're not quiet, we're just starting now.
Now we are just trying to.
You're trying to
We are
assimilate.
trying to, yes, regurgitate and see how we can think about our lives. Yeah.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We all started somewhere, right? We're just encouraging ourselves, right? It's not difficult. All these things, nobody came with it from heaven. The Bill Gates of today, they came to the world, they found their paths, they learned it, and they became who they became. Elon Musk, he didn't come with it from heaven. You know, everything he learned it here on earth. Okay, so if you right, last thing, again, another thing is, you know, I tell people, don't pay attention to people's success, right? Pay attention to the process that led to the success. Okay, so if you're trying to become somebody, don't pay attention to the news, right? What the person has achieved and all that. Just pay attention to the process. What did this person do to become who this person has become? So that way, if you can emulate the processes, you can replicate their results. Okay, just as easy as that. Okay, so guys, I'm going to put in the WhatsApp group the video. Okay, let me just stop the recording now.